Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good day to those of you who are catching this on the replay. It's wonderful to have you all here for this series on becoming a confident leader. My name is Dr. Mary Meduna Gross. I'm the founder of Plena Vita Executive Coaching, and we specialize in supporting founders and leaders with their mental health and well-being, managing that stress. And that's really kind of at the core of what we have been talking about here today or for this series around becoming a confident leader. On day one, on Monday, we really talked about the problem isn't what's going on outside of us, although that's really what it feels like. The real lever is within us, right? So things outside of us happen, but then we interpret what happened. We interpret it, we make meaning out of it based on our previous experiences, based on our beliefs about ourselves, about other people, about our expectations. Um, and so that is what really triggers our nervous system is what meaning we are giving to what is happening outside of us. Yesterday, I gave the example of somebody who's cutting you off in traffic, right? On the one hand, if you're making that mean that this person is disrespectful and rude and how dare they put us, me, and everyone else at risk, right? You're going to be triggering your nervous system in that way. It's going to say fight or flight. We've got something to defend ourselves against here. Versus if you would be able to say, oh my goodness, that poor individual must be in a terrible hurry to get wherever they're going. I hope everybody's okay. And I hope that they get where they need to be safely. What is that doing to your nervous system? Right? So that's a common example that we all live with, but it's an example of how the story that we're telling ourselves is really what drives our experience. It's not what happened. It's the story that we're telling ourselves. And so that is what keeps our nervous system triggered and keeps us in a state of chronic stress. And so the series on becoming a confident leader, what we've been talking about is, well, how do we bring awareness to these stories that we're telling ourselves? What is at the core? And the strategy that we're using for that is self awareness. And so, yesterday we talked about what it might look like to start tuning into that little voice, that inner voice that's in our head, narrating our experiences for us. And we talked about that the purpose of that narration was it's our nervous system's way, it's our ego's way of knowing everything about what's happening. It's about categorizing, and that makes us feel safe. If I can label what's happening, if I can categorize what's happening, then it says, oh, well, I know what to do with when something like this happens. I have a behavior plan for that. And if it turns this way, or if this variable is shifted, then I've got a new strategy, right? So what we're looking for, what our ego, our nervous system is looking for, is how can we make sense of this so that we know what to do next? And that is what keeps us in the state of chronic stress. So when we can start to tune into that inner chatter, that inner chatter is going to reflect for us all of these filters that we're using. This inner chatter is going to reflect for us the beliefs that we have about ourselves, about other people, about expectations, about the shoulds, the rules that we think everyone should be living by. When we don't tune into that, all of our attention is just on what's happening. And so all of our attention then is trying to fix or change what's happening. It's this idea that I can't be comfortable or satisfied inside until this thing outside of me is different. So in a sense, what we're all doing is we're waiting for somebody outside of us to change so that we don't have to. I know that really sounds appealing. I really wish that it would work that way sometimes, but it doesn't, right? It just doesn't work that way. And the good news about it not working that way is we don't have to wait on anybody else. There is nothing outside of us that is preventing us from coming to this state of inner confidence and grace other than ourselves, other than the stories that we're telling ourselves. And so yesterday, my challenge to you was just to tune in to that inner voice, that inner chatter, just to see what it is saying. And I was very clear about not trying to change the story or make that story right or wrong, judge it. Don't judge it in any way. Just listen to it. Just listen to it. Go on with your strategies, go on with whatever reaction or response that you would have done anyway. Do that, but listen to your stories. And then today, what we're going to be talking about is what do we do when those stories become, well, let me rephrase, not the story so much as what do we do when that inner voice is really beating us down? Now, most of the people that I've ever worked with, my own experience included, is that when I started tuning into this inner voice, I realized how much I was mentally abusing myself. Right? I wasn't doing this on purpose, but I was rehashing all of the parental, adult messages that I had gotten as a child. And so that's my inner parent now, right? And so I still hear those same kinds of criticisms, still hear those same kinds of judgments. And because they sound so familiar, it's easy to assume, well, they must be right? This story that I'm telling myself must be true because it is so freaking familiar. So that's where we're going to go today. We're going to dive into what do we do when that inner voice feels like it's beating us up. But I want you to be engaged with me here today. And so, what I really would like you to do is in the comments, just put in the word reset. And here's what we're doing with that. When we hit reset, not only are you telling yourself and your unconscious mind that today, this is it, this is where we draw the line. We've done our best up until now, but we now know that there is another way. We may not know exactly what that other way looks like just yet, but we do know that what we have been doing isn't sustainable. It's not sustainable, and it's not something that we want to continue. So putting reset in the comments below tells your unconscious mind that we're resetting this. And what that's going to do is to prime your unconscious mind now to look for and find more information, more resources, whatever it is that you need to be able to make this shift. All right. So type reset in the comments below. The second thing that that's doing is that it is putting it out there for other people. So when you see other people putting reset in the comments below, you know that they too are saying, this is it. I'm no longer going to sacrifice myself for some eventual outcome, some eventual achievement that I want to experience. It's saying that we're going to, all of us collectively, we're joining our energies together to hit this reset, and collectively and together, we will find and we will create this new space that allows both for our thinking and brilliant mind, but also for our hearts and our compassion and connectivity with one another. That's really ultimately what we want to do here. So put reset, join this movement, commit to yourself, commit to the universe that this is who you are today and that you are ready to grow. Thank you again for being here. So today we're going to talk about this inner roommate that is reflecting back to us all of those messages that we heard as a child that we never wanted to believe in the first place. And yet with repetition, that just gets embedded into our being. And so that we no longer even notice. So one of the things that we talked about yesterday was the difference between the ego and the soul. And so think about there's always this inner battle within you. The story we told yesterday was the story of the two wolves. We converted the two wolves into one being our ego that is responsible for our survival and for our safety, and for our soul, which is responsible for our expansion and for experiencing as much of ourselves as we possibly can. And so these are our yin and yang. These are two systems that might look like they're opposing one another. And sometimes it can feel like they're opposing one another. But in reality, they're here to enhance one another, right? So our ego is really what's developing first, and it's getting the lay of the land. It's learning everything that it can, not only technical or tactical kinds of things, but also learning about who we are and what our value is and what we're good at, what we hopefully what we also like to do, because that's one of the ways that we first start to abandon ourselves is when, even as a child, we do what we're told to do and we don't have an opportunity to really explore what is it that really makes our hearts sing. Where is it that we resonate the most, and where we can create things almost with ease. And so, again, this is our inner yin and yang, our ego and our soul. We are not trying to squelch the ego. We're not trying to get it to shut up, as much as we don't want to put up with that abuse, and we'll talk about that. But it's not about getting it to shut up as much as it is, how can we learn from this? And because I think about that ego as, yesterday I said, like a 5-year-old child, um, who knows enough, but not enough to know kind of where the boundaries are, right? So they make tantrums, and they insist on things that they don't know, that convention hasn't convinced them yet that they shouldn't insist on those things. So it's that ego side of you that is going to want to play it safe. It's that ego side of you that wants to stay in your lane. But you also, as you got older, and what I'm finding is that in the past, it used to be that a midlife crisis, right? So around 40, we start to say that soul starts to really emerge, right? We've played by the rules up until that point, and now all of a sudden the soul wants to emerge. And I'm starting to see that this is happening to younger individuals, even sometimes talking to people in their 20s who are realizing that all of the rules that they've been following aren't aligned with their soul, and they're hearing their soul, they're feeling that. And that's this coming together of this yin and yang that we're talking about. So the ego is going to want to keep us safe. It's going to keep us comfortable. And that soul is going to want us to expand. And so it's about negotiating between these two sides of us. How can we meet the needs of both of those sides? So one of the things that happens when we first start tuning in, as I had said before, is that it starts to feel like everything that we're hearing internally is a criticism, it's a judgment, it's what you should be doing, lots of shoulds, in that musts, lots of rules following, right? Not only for yourself, but you also look out around to your networks, and the rules that you live by are the rules that you want everybody else to live by too. And when they don't live by those rules, it also upsets you, right? So this is how we can kind of get twisted really quickly. So there's a few things that I want you to take away from today's conversation around this feeling like this inner voice is beating us up. The first is that voice isn't you. That voice is not you. In fact, you are the observer of that voice. That is the you, the capital Y, you is the observer of that voice. What does that mean? And why is that useful? Well, because when you see yourself as the observer, it's like you can watch your experience as if you're watching a movie. I encourage you to try this. The next time you're anywhere, it could be at the grocery store, it could be in a meeting, anytime when you're around other people, just imagine, what would it look like if I was just seeing this as a scene on a movie screen, right? Notice how your position changes. Not only does your position change, but your engagement also changes. So now you can be more objective because it's out there. You're not in it. So we have these two experiences. We're either in the experience, we're the experiencer, or we're the observer. Now, when you get really comfortable with this, and it might take some time, give yourself time to learn this. You can like flip a switch and say, what am I having? What's the experience that I'm having? So how's this feeling? And give yourself permission to feel whatever it is that's coming up. And then you can flip the switch and say, now what does this look like as an observer? So that's one way to be able to listen to what your inner voice is saying to you without necessarily having to experience it. You get to listen to it almost as an objective third party. So that's one strategy, is when that inner voice is highly critical, see it as outside of you, because in a sense it is, right? We got the big you that's observing. This experience is out here. And how does the scene look differently when you give yourself a little bit of that space? The other thing is as I said before, that listening to that inner voice, whatever it's saying to us, we can explore and go deeper around what does that mean, right? So let's take that driving experience again. Let's say that somebody cut you off in traffic, and you have a reaction, right? A stress response to that because your nervous system said, "Oh, you're in danger," right? So you instantly go into a stress response. The observer can say, "Oh, look what we just did. We just went into a stress response because that car driving by felt really unsafe to us. I can see how that would happen." But I can also see from this observer perspective that my interpretation that this driver was somehow putting me in danger may not literally be true. It's just my perception as the experiencer. So that's the first piece, right? Just remember that that inner voice is not you. It's just a reflection of all of the rules that you're living by, all the beliefs that you're living by, all the expectations that you're living by. And so my second suggestion to you then is, as I mentioned yesterday, listen to that inner voice as you would a small child who's been hurt. What would you say to that small child? What kind of comfort would you bring to that small child? Because oftentimes we give ourselves a second punishment when something doesn't happen the way we want it to. Then we automatically, immediately judge ourselves because that's the recording that we have going on. Catch yourself when you're judging yourself and ask yourself, what would be the most loving response that I could give to this part of me that is judging me? How can I love that? This suggestion comes from one of my new favorite books. It's called Whatever Arises, Love That by Matt Kahn, Kahn. Whatever Arises, Love That. And in this book, he reminds us that whatever is coming up for us, whatever judgment or criticism that we have for ourselves, that part of us needs more love, not less. And not only does it need more love, not less, it needs the love that only we can give ourselves. We can't rely on external sources to give us that love. We can do that for ourselves. And so I want to close today with a few of the mantras that Matt includes in his book. Again, Whatever Arises, Love That by Matt Kahn. But before I close today, I encourage you again, make a statement for yourself, to the universe, that you are hitting the reset button now. You're done sacrificing yourself. You're ready to move into a more empowered way of being. And I am so excited for you to be at this stage. It might be really scary. It might be really unknown, but I got you. I got you. I've been here. I've walked through this path. I've helped many others through this path as well, and I can support you too. So with that, After you've posted, reset in the comments. Let's close today with a few of those mantras. Tomorrow, what we're going to do is, so today we're going to love that part of ourselves that is critical and judgmental. And tomorrow we're going to learn to ask ourselves some questions of the ego to help us get to what are those core beliefs that is shaping how we are giving meaning to our experiences. So come back tomorrow for how to basically coach yourself, coach that ego part of you to find out what are those rules that you're really living by that is shaping your entire experience. So I hope that as we close here, you can give yourself just a few seconds of pausing and peace and take in these mantras from Matt Kahn. When I'm sad, I deserve more love, not less. When I'm angry, I deserve more love, not less. When I'm hurt, heartbroken, or ashamed, I deserve more love, not less. When I'm embarrassed by my actions, I deserve more love, not less. Despite what I think, I always deserve more love, not less. On my worst day, I deserve more love, not less. I hope that you have a very loving experience with yourself today, regardless of what comes up. It's all an opportunity just to love those parts of you, because as you do, we'll talk tomorrow about how that loosens the grip on those beliefs that we're going to uncover tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here.